The Forgotten Asylum. I don't know why we thought it was a good idea. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was curiosity. Either way, that's how I found myself standing in front of the old Mercer Asylum with my two best friends, Nate and Jess. The place had been abandoned for decades, left to rot on the outskirts of town. Windows shattered, vines creeping up the stone walls, the whole building sagging like it had given up on itself. People swore it was haunted, but that just made us want to go in more. "Last chance to back out," Nate joked, his flashlight cutting through the dark. Jess smirked. "Are you kidding? I've been waiting all week for this." I exhaled and pushed the heavy door open. It groaned like something waking up. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and something else. Something off. The halls stretched in both directions, peeling wallpaper curling at the edges. The silence felt too loud. "Let's check out the patient rooms," Jess whispered. "That's where the good stuff is." We moved deeper inside, our footsteps muffled by layers of dirt and debris. Every door we passed had rusted shut or hung open like a gaping mouth. Faded nameplates were still bolted to the walls. Room 204, Room 205, Room 206. Nate nudged me. "You hear that?" I stopped. The floor creaked beneath us, but that wasn't it. A shuffling sound, faint, distant. "Probably rats," I muttered, more to convince myself than anything. But then it came again, closer. Not skittering, dragging. Jess shot me a look, but she didn't say anything. None of us did. We just kept moving. We reached a hallway where the patient records had been kept, papers still scattered across the floor like a storm had blown through. Jess bent down, picking one up. "Patient 146. Severe delusions. Aggressive behavior. Believed to be..." She trailed off, frowning. "Believed to be what?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, her flashlight flickered, then went out completely. Nate swore. "Damn batteries!" Then his went out. And mine. We were swallowed in darkness. And that's when the whispering started. It wasn't coming from one direction. It was all around us. Soft, overlapping voices, like a crowd murmuring just out of reach. I felt my pulse hammer in my throat. "Okay, that's enough," Nate said, his voice too thin to sound convincing. Jess grabbed my arm. "We need to go. Now." We turned, but the hallway behind us wasn't the same. The doors were all closed now. The papers on the floor were gone, and at the very end of the corridor, barely visible in the dark, a figure stood watching us, tall, motionless, its head tilted slightly like it was curious. Then it took a step, a slow, dragging step. None of us waited. We ran. I don't even remember getting out, just the sheer panic, the sound of our own footsteps pounding against the floor. By the time we burst through the front doors gasping for air, the night outside had never felt so safe. We didn't talk about it after that, didn't go back. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I swear I still hear those whispers. And I know. The asylum hasn't forgotten us.
The asylum still breathes. I don't know why I agreed to it. Maybe it was boredom, maybe just plain stupidity. But when my friend Jake dared me to spend a night in Blackwood Asylum, I said yes without hesitation. Blackwood had been abandoned for over 50 years. It stood on the outskirts of town, hidden behind overgrown trees, its brick walls cracked and weathered. They said it used to house the worst of the worst, patients no other facility would take. But after a fire in 1972, the place was shut down, left to rot. I arrived just before sundown. The air smelled stale, like damp wood and dust. My flashlight beam flickered as I stepped inside, boots crunching over shattered glass and debris. The main hall stretched before me, lined with rusted wheelchairs and peeling wallpaper. My breath echoed. I told myself it was just a building, nothing more. But the silence felt wrong. I wandered deeper, past the nurse's station, the old patient rooms. Some doors hung open, others were bolted shut, their locks rusted solid. The beds were still there, metal frames twisted with age. One even had restraints still attached, the leather cracked and stiff. Then I heard it. A whisper. Software. Muffled. Coming from down the hall. I froze. My mind scrambled for a rational explanation. Wind through broken windows. Rats scurrying through the walls. But then it came again. Closer. Help! Me! My chest tightened. It had to be a prank. Jake messing with me. But I was alone. I had seen him drive away. The whisper turned into a low, wet breathing. I followed the sound, flashlight trembling in my grip. It led me to a door at the end of the hall, the words isolation ward barely visible beneath years of grime. I pushed it open. The room was empty. No furniture, no signs of life. Just cold concrete walls and a rusted drain in the center of the floor. But something was wrong. The air was heavy, thick, pressing against my skin like a damp cloth. My flashlight flickered again, casting jagged shadows across the walls. Then the door slammed shut behind me. I spun, heart hammering, my breath fogged in the sudden chill. And then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling the room. I wasn't alone. I turned my flashlight, but the beam barely cut through the darkness. The footsteps stopped. And then, right behind me, a voice rasped, "They never let me out!" Cold breath tickled the back of my neck. I ran. I didn't look, didn't breathe. I just threw myself at the door, yanking the handle until it gave. The hallway was darker now, the walls seeming to close in. Shadows slithered across the floor, moving when I moved. The whispers returned, dozens of them this time. "Help me! They never let me out! It hurts! Make it stop!" I sprinted for the exit, lungs burning. The voices growing louder, more desperate. The front door was in sight, just a few feet away. A hand grabbed my wrist, cold, clammy, fingers digging into my skin. I screamed, wrenching free, and crashed through the doors into the night. The air outside was sharp and crisp, reality snapping back into place. I spun around. The asylum was quiet, lifeless, just an empty, decaying building. But my wrist, it still burned where something had touched me. I never went back, but sometimes when the wind is just right, I swear I hear the whispers, calling me back inside.
The murders at Black Hollow Asylum. I don't know what I was expecting when I took the job at Black Hollow Asylum. Maybe just a paycheck, a way to pass the time. It was an overnight security gig. Easy money, or so I thought. The place had been abandoned for decades, left to rot after a string of gruesome murders shut it down. They never found the killer. Most people said it was a patient. Some believed it was a staff member who snapped. Others swore the asylum itself had turned on them. Either way, 12 people died in a single night. Their bodies found in their rooms, doors locked from the inside. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, just lifeless corpses, eyes wide open in terror. Now it was just me, a flashlight, and an old set of keys. The halls were silent as I made my rounds. Faint moonlight spilled through broken windows, casting jagged shadows across the walls. The air was heavy, carrying the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic. I told myself it was just in my head. Then I heard it, a soft scraping sound. It came from the end of the hall, near the patient rooms. My radio crackled with static as I stepped forward, my flashlight flickering. The sound continued like nails dragging against concrete. I turned the corner and froze. A door that had been locked for years was now wide open. Room 306, that was one of the murder rooms. I swallowed hard, shining my light inside. The walls were covered in old, faded scratches, tallies, like someone had been counting days. And in the center of the room, an old metal bed frame sat rusted and broken. The scraping sound stopped. I took a step inside. The air was thick, charged, like the building was holding its breath. My flashlight dimmed again. Then, from the corner of the room, a whisper, low, raspy, "Still here?" I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs. But there was no one. Just the empty room, the old bed, the scratches on the walls. And then I saw them. Fresh tally marks, right there, scratched into the concrete. I ran. Down the hall, past the empty nurses' station, toward the exit. But as I turned the last corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. The doors were gone. In their place stood a long, endless hallway, stretching into the dark. And then the whispers returned. Dozens of voices, murmuring, laughing, crying. A shadow moved at the end of the corridor, tall, motionless, watching me. Then, one by one, the doors along the hallway began to creak open. I wasn't alone. I never was.